Hi everybody and happy Thanksgiving. I'm Bree the Plant Lady, and today I just wanted to take an opportunity to make a quick video that basically goes over all of the essential things that you need to know for successful poppy sowing. Every year I try to do this. I inevitably will leave something else out, but I want to encourage you to first of all subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to be continuously putting up videos about how to sow and then ultimately how to take care of your poppies over the course of the winter. I also have a very complete poppy playlist that I would encourage you to look through, so that if you have questions, I'm positive that I've answered every question that's ever been asked in the course of making these videos over the last few years. But to be concise-ish, I'm gonna try my best right now to basically give you like the top 10 most important instructions for seeding, and then basically the aftercare for the first, 4 to 6 weeks after they germinate. All right, so let's get started. So first of all, what are poppies? Poppies are kind of a generic name for a bunch of different plants, and not even all of them are technically papaver, the genera name for poppy. The classic example of that is Eschscholzia californica, the California poppy. Eschscholzia is its genera, not papaver. The good thing is that all of these plants that kind of fit into the category of annual poppies get treated the same. So when I talk about poppies, I'm including California poppies, Icelandic poppies, papaver reese, or the corn poppy, and the breadseed poppy, Papaver somniferum. Papaver somniferum is the one that people seem to be primarily interested in growing. It's the most robust, it's definitely the tallest, and it is the source of the seeds that you would be baking with. So that always adds a lot of intrigue for people. But just know that no matter what kind of poppy seed you're growing, the instructions I'm giving you are accurate for all of them. Okay. So number 2, where should you grow poppies? Well, they do best in more sun than shade, and they need to be in a bed that you have prepared, where you've essentially raked away anything that could impede germination. Or actually, what I often recommend, if you have a bed with a lot of mulch, just top dress the bed with an inch or 2 of compost. I always use soil cube, and that'll be the perfect medium for you to be able to sow the poppies into to ensure a really high germination rate. So let me turn my camera around so I can show you this bed behind me that I have already prepped, and we've actually already sown poppy seeds into, so you can get an understanding of what your bed should look like. So you can see this is a bed. It gets western exposure, so full sun all afternoon. And essentially I had mulch in here, and I raked the mulch away. So you can see there's triple shred hardwood here. But then over here, I just top dressed with some extra soil cube. So you can see it's nice, kind of bare compost. And then I've scattered the seeds right on top. And once the seeds were scattered, you can't do anything else. You don't want to walk in the bed. You can't rake it. You can't mulch it. You can lightly water, but that's basically it. Now here's another example. This is like a feed tank, a galvanized tank that we did poppies, and then we also sowed some lettuce in. You can see the lettuce seeds. The poppy seeds are basically invisible once you have sown them, but this entire thing had a generous helping of poppies directly sown. And once the seed is sown, that's it. You don't mix the seed in. You leave them right on the surface, because poppy seeds need light to germinate. So number 3, how long does it take for the seeds to germinate? Well, it's usually at this time of year, it's going to take between 15 and 30 days for the seeds to germinate. And in that time, you just have to be patient. Again, don't walk in the bed, don't mess with them. It's really important that you just leave the seeds alone. That's going to lead to your highest success rate. Of course, the end goal is for you to have a beautiful spring display with all of these poppies blooming. And the more you mess with them now, the fewer flowers you're going to end up having. Now, why do I'm like a stickler about the date? Okay, poppies need to have cool soil in order to germinate. So the advice I'm sharing is going to be best for people living in zones 7 through 9. And I can't help that. This is the climate that I live in. I can't be a resource for people living all over the world when I have no gardening experience in, different regions. So always my advice for people living in, regions outside the Southeast, first of all, find some local resources that will be able to give you verbatim information. You can take my advice and get inspired by it, but, always check to see what your best sow dates are for the region that you're living in. Now, for the southeastern climate, zones 7 through 9, you really need to wait until we've at least had several nights of frost, because we need the soil temperature to be cooler so that the seedlings won't grow too rapidly and then be too tender when we do finally start having, real winter-like temperatures in, maybe early January through February. One of the biggest challenges about being a gardener in the Southeast are our temperature fluctuations through the winter. We can be really, really warm for several weeks, be frost-free, and then all of a sudden temperatures crash. And you need to have your plants not be growing so actively that they're going to be too tender when our temperatures start going up and down. So this is why I always say, sow your poppy seeds between Black Friday and New Year's. Really, the month of December is the ideal time to get your poppy seeds directly sown. All right, number 4, why do you have to direct seed? I promise you, because I have tried, they do not transplant well. And even if you do successfully transplant them, they often lose vigor and won't grow to their complete size. So don't bother trying to transplant. Just directly seed them. Now, how do you avoid them being overseeded? Well, I'm going to include a handy little video that I made the other day called the bowling method. And basically that's going to ensure that you're going to scatter your seeds so that they will have, enough space in between so that they will grow to their full size without you having to interfere. I don't do any thinning of any of my poppy seeds. In fact, I did an experiment last year. You can watch the video on YouTube. It's in the poppy playlist, where I thinned one half of a section and left the other section alone. And to be perfectly frank, the section that I didn't touch performed better. So you're better off just not trying to micromanage these seedlings. Let them be. But do the bowling method when you're scattering your seed so that you get enough space in between each plant so that you won't really even have to worry about it. All right, everybody, I've got like a palm full of seeds, and I'm standing here in the long hall of this bed, and I'm literally gonna just take my hand, and it's like you're bowling. You're literally just in one solid motion tossing the seeds out. That way they are well distributed, because I don't have any intention of coming in and thinning these poppies. Let nature take its course. Remember, they don't transplant. So there's really no point in going through hands and knees, weeding in between the, weeding out little seedlings. Just let the plants fight it out, but use the bowling technique so that you get better spacing of your seeds, so that you start with appropriate space for the poppies to reach their fruition. All right, what do the seedlings look like? This right here is what the Papaver somniferum will look like after they've germinated. And these are probably, I'm gonna say about 20 days old at this stage. You just wanna leave them alone. You can see they're pretty close to each other, but I promise you, as they grow out, each plant will figure out its own spacing. So no need to do anything here. What about watering? Everybody always asks, and this is really hard advice to share, because literally there are so many factors. Temperature, wind, exposure, your soil profile. There's a lot that goes into determining how often you should water. Basically, you're gonna have to use some common sense. So as these seedlings are germinating, you know, their roots are only like this deep. So it's entirely possible that you may have to come out and give them some extra water in between rains to make sure that that top layer of your soil doesn't dry out. Because if you do allow them to get too dry, the seedlings will damp off. However, if they get too wet, they can also have an adverse reaction. So my advice is, first of all, pay attention to the weather forecast. And if it seems dry, go ahead and give your plants a little extra water. But like, for instance, today, I would be watering. However, there is rain in the forecast for like day after tomorrow. So I'm not gonna interfere. I am going to let nature take its course, knowing that water is gonna fall from the sky and it's gonna do a more efficient job than I would with a hose. So again, I don't mean to be condescending at all. I just cannot tell you a specific water every 3 days because frankly, that's not how gardening works. So you're gonna just have to exercise some, you know, general go outside, put your finger in the soil. If it seems really dry, go ahead and give them some water and make sure that you're paying attention to the weather forecast because this is a time of year where the days are short and the temperatures are much cooler. So your soil isn't going to be drying out as quickly as it would be in the middle of the summer. Can you grow poppies in containers? Absolutely. I have a video that will be coming out to tell you exactly how simple it is to grow poppies in containers. So if you don't have space in the ground, you can absolutely devote a nice sized pot to scattering your seeds in and allowing them to grow over the course of the winter. Now, just again, pots are going to dry out much more quickly than in the ground. So there may be an added maintenance element to growing them in containers because you will have to keep your pots well watered. All right, why do I always grow poppies in the winter? Well, again, this is a climate thing, and this is why this advice is best for zones 7 through 9, though I think zone 6 can also be included. Poppies are cool season annuals, and in the southeast, we are too hot too early to get these things sown in the spring. There simply isn't enough time for them to get established and then to actually bolt and flower and set seed before our temperatures are rising into the upper 80s and 90s. So that is why poppies, larkspur, nigella, all of our grains, all of our greens have to be sown in like mid to late fall, and they grow all winter long, and then they bloom in the spring, and by the time it's really hot, they are setting seeds that you can then collect and stash in your refrigerator to then sow the following November, December. Now, this cycle obviously doesn't make sense for people in zone 5. Okay, I'm trying to be as open and honest here as possible. I live in central North Carolina. I grew up in Michigan. What I do here is basically the opposite of what I did growing up. But there are a lot of northern transplants living in the southeast that need to have this advice because what you did in the north isn't necessarily going to translate to living in the south, where our ground doesn't freeze and we have a 12-month year growing cycle. So poppies do need the winter season to be able to establish their root system, and then they will ultimately bolt and set a flower as the days get longer and the temperatures increase. But they need cool soil to get established, which is why you have to do this seeding now in late November through the month of December. I know sometimes this can really seem confusing, but I promise you it isn't. And to be perfectly honest, what do you have to lose if you aren't even successful? Seed packets are what, like between $3 and $5 a piece? So I really encourage you to get outside, sow some poppies if you've never done it before. Be sure to watch the videos in my playlist so that you get the full understanding of exactly how to do it. And, you know, consider it a really cool experiment that you can learn from. I always say gardening is really a game of trial and error, and you always learn more from your failures than your successes. Of course, I'm here to try and set you up for success, but I want you to be an experimenter just like me. So go outside, toss some poppy seeds out, and learn for yourself the joy of growing these beautiful spring blooming flowers. So one of the other questions people always ask is, do they self-sow? And of course they do, but I can guarantee they will self-sow where you don't want them. So where I want the poppies is to be in the bed. But where are the poppies actually growing? Literally on the outside edge, in the pathway. So this is why I sow my poppies every single year with intention. And don't worry, I am going to continuously be sowing poppies in all of these beds that I haven't gotten to. So make sure that you are tuning in to my videos. I'm posting every single day for the rest of the year so that you will see my exact process and then you can emulate that. I mentioned California poppies and I wanted to show you, here are some Eschscholzia californica that have actually over-summered, which isn't always that common here in the humid southeast, but these are actually plants that I sowed December of 2021, and you can see they flowered last spring, but here they are growing really happily. Again, full sun. You can see this is getting, great exposure, and they were direct seeded right in place, no transplanting. Well, I hope I've covered it all in this video. I am much better when I have a PowerPoint, which is what I love to do. And I do have a great program called Direct Seeding Cottage Garden Displays. So if you have a garden club that you would like for me to come and visit or do a virtual program for, drop me an email, bree@breegrows.com. It's a really great 45 minute to an hour session where I go through all of this process with great visual aids. And I'm always, happy to share this information with enthusiastic gardeners, not only in the Southeast, but all over the country. I'd say most importantly, growing poppies is just one of those things that is a really kind of cool, enjoyable experience. And, they're so beautiful when they flower. Everybody deserves to have that joy in their life. So I hope that this video will be useful to you. And be sure, again, to tune in to all of the videos that I have in the How to Grow Poppy playlist, because there's a treasure trove of information. And I think everybody generally learns a little bit better from actually seeing these techniques being done in real life, like action shots. Well, I'm wishing you all the very best this Thanksgiving holiday, and I do hope you will subscribe to the Bree the Plant Lady YouTube channel so that you will continue to get regular daily advice right here from my Zone 7 garden in Central North Carolina. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and happy seed sowing.